Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag video for August 2025. This is also where I share my August Buzzwordathon pick, so if you want to go to that part of the video, I'll leave the timestamp right here. Anyway, the page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean Breathe's Books. It's based off of a French literary prize wherein they comprise the long list of said prize solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. These books, I believe, were all novels. Page 112 for most novel lengths is somewhat in the middle, and it's supposed to be after the polished for editors pages where you get the raw, real writing. And also, without context for the rest of the story, you can only judge the book based on the quality of the writing of that said page. Or, that's the idea anyway. So I've been using this tag ever since COVID to slowly whittle down my physical unread shelves while building them back up again. I have this handy dandy books and cats mug, and inside these are pieces of paper with titles for my physical unread shelves, titles that I've acquired in 2024 or earlier. And so each month I randomly pick out 3 of these books, and then I read page 112 with you, discuss their merits, and then finally pick one book to join my month's TBR. I have a lot of fun with this video, I think a lot like, TBR gamers do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with book number 1. I think by this point, earlier in the year, I picked a lot of books that I'd played with before, but in 2024 I acquired a lot of books too, so I'm wondering if I'm going to grab some of those now. But let's see which this one is. This is Queering Rehoboth Beach by John T. Sears. This is definitely an acquisition I got around July of last year. I was in Rehoboth Beach for my birthday, and I went to Browse About Books, their local bookstore, and this was one signed by the author that really intrigued me. I've grown up going to Rehoboth Beach. It's known as a queer beach, a gay beach, and so I'm excited to get into some of the history of that. Now let's try for book number 2. I like diversity in my picks, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it because, technically speaking, most things in here are novels and not nonfiction, so we'll see how this goes. And also, they stick together, so let's see if I can get one of them alone. Okay, book number 2. The Scrolls of Deborah by Esther Goldenberg. I acquired this book in November of last year. The author came to my synagogue, to the Sisterhood Book Club, to give a talk, because this is biblical-inspired fiction. And actually, she just also published the sequel, which I got this year for Indie Bookstore Day. So I should see what I make of this story already. And finally, book number 3. I'm even more hopeful that it'll be something different because I have more literary fiction and general fiction in here than I do like speculative sci-fi fantasy. So we'll see what this one is. Mercury Pictures Presents by Anthony Mara. Yep, once again, a 2024 acquisition. I went to a really local used bookstore. It's also like a record store. It's called Mojo Mala. And I saw that this, for sale, and I was intrigued. I remember hearing about it when it was buzzy, and the author even came to a local book fair, and I didn't get the book then, but now, finally, I figured at this used bookstore it was time to pick it up and see what it was all about. Okay, so you've seen me pick up all 3 of these books, and actually I am going to go read them to myself first, the page 112s, to gather my thoughts, but stay tuned, I'll be back in just a jiffy. And I'm back, ready to finish this off with you, starting with discussing book number 1, Queering Rehoboth Beach, Beyond the Boardwalk by James T. Sears. And here's even a bookmark I got for Browse About Books. They talked to a few people and got them to open up design shops and clothing shops, details Pisapia. We were recreating the town and embraced everybody. He proudly claims, "We never had a Glenn Thompson kind of attitude. I will win it all. Fuck all of you." During the 1980s, several queer-owned or friendly restaurants opened. The Palms, Astral Plane, La La Land, Square One, and Sydney's. Williamton's Morning News, headlining Rehoboth's growing gay population, estimated 15 gay-owned businesses. Delaware's leading conservative columnist, Bill Frank, queried his morning readers, "Are the gays in Rehoboth troubling you?" On a sleepy side street, the avenue had transformed into a commercial destination. Flanking the Moon were clothing and jewelry stores, a bakery, and an art gallery, along with Terry Plowman's Front Page restaurant and Pat Whittier and Peggy Fuller's 6-room Paper Nautilus guest house across the street. Farther down the avenue, a former rooming house and courtyard had been converted into 8 specialty shops ranging from Christie's, selling women's apparel, to Elephant's Trunk, offering finely crafted toys. On the other side toward 2nd Street was Rehoboth Mews, a Victorian alleyway of boutique emporia, partly owned by Town Commissioner Norman Segru. Here, Secrets on the Beach showcased crazy shirts of Hawaii. Owner Sharon Cantor, a lesbian like many of those pioneering entrepreneurs, sometimes hosted champagne parties, yet she dreaded visits from the lumbering Segru, issuing stern warnings about risque underwear displayed in her window, or when her deceptively diminutive neighbor Bertha Pusey brought coffee served with bitterness. Around the 1st Street and 2nd Street corners were other queer businesses. Owners Bill Seivert and John Thies, who had met at San Francisco's Stud Bar, operated Splash, an upscale casual clothing store, when Seivert wasn't working on his mystery novel set in Rehoboth. There, too, was lesbian-owned clothing store Norma Reeves' Whipstitch. The Chihuahua Taxi, a laid-back, funky Mexican joint, was opened by Pisapia and Felton in 1985. 1 street south on Maryland Avenue, Bill Corville and Bob Jerome opened their upscale Rehoboth guest house. Along Rehoboth Avenue were the End of the Line, showcasing Key West merchandise, Greybeards of London, a tobacco and gift shop owned by gay DC book pioneers Deacon McCubbin and Jem Bennett, and of course the venerable Back Porch Cafe, now owned by Keith Fitzgerald, Leo Megdish, and Marilyn Spitz. "We were great supporters of other people who were opening up establishments that were a step above," Felton said. Although she celebrates the new feeling of experimentation, there was also resistance, resistance, resistance. Okay, so here's a bit of a problem, I think, with me in nonfiction. I mean, it's not really a story on this page. I guess it is in part. It's like, well, here's a, smorgasbord of, stores that opened in Rehoboth, and I have to be so embarrassed because, like, I've been going to Rehoboth for forever, but I'm not always that great with, like, streets and everything. But anyway, I mean, this is just like a slew of names and, and businesses and people. So it's just a bit overwhelming in that way. I mean, in theory, I enjoy it. I enjoy the anecdote of, taking a closer look into these restaurants, and so forth, except that it's not really a closer look. We're just sort of listing them off about what was, on tap in, the burgeoning gay community, with a couple of cute or sad anecdotes like the conservative columnist and, a couple of quotes that seem a bit quirky. But yeah, I mean, I'm still really interested in this book, but I feel like, this page is not, the type of thing that would grab me. Next, we have The Scrolls of Deborah by Esther Goldenberg. We learned that it was Rebecca who was right on the day that Eliezer came to our compound. Rebecca had been the first to see him. She had been drawing water for the sheep when a tall man, trailed by 10 camels and 2 young men, came into view. She watched them for most of the morning as they got closer. She thought of how thirsty they must be, having traveled these dry, dusty hills for so long, and she offered to bring them all water. As the camels and servants finished drinking and the man himself had quenched his thirst from Rebecca's ladle, Eliezer unpacked a satchel from one of the camels. Inside was a small golden nose ring and 2 heavy gold armbands. He offered them to Rebecca, and she accepted. "Tell me," he said, "whose daughter are you? And is there room in your father's home for us to spend the night?" Rebecca answered his question plainly. "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. There is plenty of straw and feed, and also room to spend the night." While it was rare to have traders or caravans pass by, it did happen sometimes, and it was the custom of the household to invite them to wash their hands and feet and have a meal and stay the night. Rebecca was extending that same hospitality and was surprised by Eliezer's strong reaction, for as she finished answering him, he bowed and thanked Yah. "Blessed is Yah, God of my master Abraham, who did not give up on his faithfulness to my master, for this God has guided me to the house of my master's brother." I gotta say, I'm just largely disappointed by this one. I can tell what this story is in this biblical retelling. This is about Abraham's servant who's looking for a wife for Abraham's son Isaac, coming upon Rebecca at a well. It's kind of a staple in a lot of the biblical stuff about, meeting at wells. But I feel like this is almost biblical in and of itself. I mean, I know technically the language is a little different, but it feels distant. It doesn't feel like we're getting close and personal or something new. The language is kind of passive. We don't really get very close to Rebecca or any of these characters at all. So I just got to say, it makes me kind of sad. I mean, I'm still, intrigued to, read this series, but I think there's something to be desired in the execution of the writing here. And finally, we have Mercury Pictures Presents by Anthony Mora. And actually, as you can see, page 112 is the very beginning of a chapter, and that doesn't necessarily feel fair to me. There's like a little bit of like beginning structure to the beginning of a chapter, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and read from page 113 instead. Ferrando rises from the bunk and crosses the concrete floor. He takes the jail cell keys. Worryingly, he's begun to think of them as house keys. Reaches through the bars and unlocks the cell door. The telephone in his office is ringing for the 40th or 50th time when he finally answers it. "I thought you got locked in again," Giovanni Bellino, his sergeant, says cheerfully from the other end of the line. His sergeant Schadenfreude verges on insubordination, but Ferrando doesn't hold it against him. Bellino is an ambitious young officer, condemned by fate, God, and bureaucracy to work under a bespectacled Genovese paper pusher who has never been tasked with investigating a crime more serious than public urination. But Bellino will only have to work under Ferrando for another 12 to 18 months, this being the timeline offered by the doctor who found the spots on the x-ray of Ferrando's lungs. "Stop by the Podesta office on the way in. See what he needs from us today," Ferrando says. He throws open the curtains and winces at the lemon spurts of sunlight. "Be careful, okay? About half of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs came down with Himmler from Rome. We're up to our eyeballs in assholes." Bellino promises to call back from the Podesta's office. Ferrando returns the receiver to the cradle and prepares for the day under the supercilious gaze of his roommate, confidant, and only friend, the cat. "Don't give me that look," Ferrando tells the cat. "You're the reason we're in this mess. I turn my back for 1 minute, and what do? You set the whole place on fire." The cat slinks over and wraps its fuzzy tail around Ferrando's shin. "You can drop the innocent act. I'm Inspector Rocco Ferrando. Brigands cower at the sound of my..." The cat nuzzles its head against his ankle. Okay. I love you too." After shaving and dressing, he grabs one of the dozen books stacked beside the filing cabinet. Aside from the cat, they were all he saved from the fire. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and say right here, this one feels like the kind of obvious winner to me. This really has everything that I look for in a type of page 112, like a character who kind of leaps off the page a little bit, is intriguing to follow even after knowing him for so little time. This police officer Ferrando, who first gets locked in his jail cell, and apparently that's common enough that his sergeant knows how to, respond on the phone. And then, like, there's this, kind of shocking, sad little anecdote that Ferrando is pretty sure that he's going to die within 18 months. And he just, like, we just put that in on the page in terms of this relationship. But, that seems like it could be tragic, but this character has like a quirky attitude, maybe a little too quirky. Maybe the bit with the cat and, his speech as the cat, curls around him, and lovingly. I don't know, maybe that is a bit much, or maybe not, Personal bias, I love a cat in a story. I'd feel the same way, I think. It's nice to see cats being portrayed as, loving animals for once. And also, I guess there's a little bit of history in here as well. We're hearing about Himmler from, Germany in World War II and the Nazis. So, it's just a little bit more context about where we are. So, yeah, I think to me, in terms of page 112, this is kind of firing on a lot of cylinders. So, it's a little bit of a chunky book, but I think I'm going to go ahead and add Mercury Pictures Presents to my TBR, so long as I can actually, pronounce it. All right, and now returning to the Buzzwordathon, a famous booktube readathon started by Kayla at Books and Lala. The Buzzwordathon usually takes buzzy, hyped up title trends in publishing, and then Kayla turns it into a year-long readathon with monthly prompts, and she did that again this year. But this year she also, in 2025, added cover trends as well and did cover prompts. And I latched onto it this year for the first time. Well, I mean, any of the Buzzwordathon stuff for the first time. Because back in the end of 2024, I did this huge book haul, the Raid the Shelves book haul. I went to the Jewish Book Council. It's a website I basically live on, but every year they have this big event where, they invite people in to grab as many books as possible from, everything publishers send them. And so I came back home with like 18 books or what have you, and I wanted to find a way to read them all. And so I've been doing this challenge month by month, and as you can see, I've been very diligent in reading my book a month. And so now we are on to August, and the prompt for August and covers is transportation. And I have to say, this is the month where I think I am straining things the most because, even though I have 18 books, that's not a huge amount of variety to choose from. So I had no explicit covers with transportation, but I do have this. This is Parallel Lines by Ruth Mark Iglash, and it very much centers around the Jerusalem light rail system. And for a little bit of proof, here is a map of said system. Too bad maps aren't part of this challenge. So that about covers it for me now. I will leave Goodreads links to all of the books I mentioned listed down below, as well as a playlist for all of my TBR games. It is predominantly the page 112 tag, which I play monthly. I also do play a quarterly TBR game, the BookTube Spin, that's also in the playlist. So yeah, definitely eager to go forth with my August reading. Well, I've got big chunkster to put on there now, and also the BookTube prize. And speaking of the BookTube prize, I'm going to be back on this channel soon to resume a series of videos that I've put aside for the last several months, but it's the Would You Read It challenge, where I've been reading the beginning of BookTube prize books of yore, kind of similar to the page 112 tag, except I'm reading the first page and giving my thoughts on each of the old ballads for fiction. So anyway, stay tuned for that video. In the meantime, I hope you're doing well, enjoying your TBR games, and enjoying the books that come from them. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.